Hello everyone, Connor Whitmore here again with another video for you on the Nawtystep channel, and in today's video I'm going to be talking about the new album from Dr. P, released on Circus Records, Animal, Vegetable, Mineral Part 2. It's here, finally. The wait has been so long, but 7.5 years have passed and we have Animal, Vegetable, Mineral Part 2. Part 1, put out in September 2012, being undeniably one of the most iconic EPs modern dubstep has seen. Some of the most creative, off-the-wall, freakish, exuberant music to come out of the genre, no question. Not only the instrumentals, but the vocal performances as well. So much personality, character, all incredible. Yeah, I could go on and on riffing about it, one of my all-time faves for sure. But alas, we now have part 2 to talk about. In that stretch of time, we've had a fair few years of releasing here and there for Dr. P. Highlights for me including his collab EP with Flux Pavilion, singles like Going Gorillas, Champagne Bop. In amidst all that, of course, managing Circus alongside Mr. Pavilion. But the big question with him always through everything was when AVM Part 2 would arrive. And now that we have it and have heard it, the second biggest question being, how would it stand as a successor to Part 1? And not sure I know exactly how I want to say what I want to say here, but it may be Part 2, but in every way I'm not sure I could call it a successor. Part 2 was a chance to follow up one of the most forward-thinking, adventurous EPs ever, with something at least functioning as a tribute in its creativity, and for Dr. P to stand out from the current norms of bass, notably dubstep, rebuff the trends and carve his own innovative path again. But no, this is so far from that, and I'm going to try and put into words here why I think that is so. Difficult to know where to start, I suppose, with my biggest irk here, his pandering to the current dubstep trends and norms and whatnot. Just such a waste. First off, the dubstep that is so plain and uninspired that I had to triple check each one was from him. The grungy and electric feel of the RIDDIM opener Smoke and Flames I actually don't mind, a nice purpose to it as well. But as a whole sound, these drops are so off, percussion is really weird, no feeling of impact about it. What is that talk snare thing? The second drop, moreover, is structurally one of the most odd I've heard in a while, stuck between being a final drop sequence and an outro. I then feel compelled to go right to the very end of the album, and in particular the final 3 tunes here, beginning with Something to Believe In, which, similar to Smoke and Flames, clearly has Dr. P flavour, but overall is again just very ineffective. The main idea is like the musical equivalent of a younger sibling continuously poking you on the shoulder, just one repeated prod after another. The lack of variety and spice here being quite obvious, but more than that, the heaviness is just so meh. I don't get the appeal of it at all. Following that, track 9, Alone, more pounding dubstep that is just so bland, lifeless. Where's the ingenuity here? The house version of which, in the second drop, unsurprisingly does not save the day. And then to round up the LP, perhaps fittingly, another dose of dubstep that does absolutely nothing for me. Death Anxiety, the name of the tune, is about a very standard, plodding, RIDDIM-y beat. Sounds like everything I've heard already. The percussion is poor and again no real sense of development or progression, and I'll say it again, almost fitting to end on that note. The kind of stuff that makes me sad as to what dubstep has become, considering what it has been, and especially from him. Why has repeating the same ideas over and over, those with next to no melody, colour, innovation, with distorted percussion become the norm. And that is not the full extent of the current dubstep trend machine here, as we also get a good hit of unnecessarily loud BRIDDIM on Overheater with Cramac. Just like all the other BRIDDIM I've already heard, ideas-wise not really doing anything, and again just left thinking, what purpose does this serve? Must admit, I didn't think it could get more overly in your face than the first drop, but the second one with its stop-start mechanical design is just too much, not pleasant to hear. We then also have the straight up weird. I'm lumping it in with the dubstep here, but really I'm not even sure what you'd call it. Track 4 I'm on about, Fuck the Speaker. Honestly, not a clue what he's trying to do here. Really interesting background sounds, but the main idea... What? Distortion on the production is off the chain. I don't get how he heard this one over and over and was like, yeah, that'll do. There is one dubstep cut here, to be fair, that I find alright. Give It Up with Frankie Nuts, which has a pretty powerful energy surging through it. Simultaneously aggressive and heartfelt, nice dynamic between sounds, a vibrant big room feel. Shame the percussion doesn't smack that hard though. That leaves us with 3 tunes, which I suppose constitute as the experimentation on the album. We get a welcomed injection of drum and bass here, breaking the dubstep up just a bit. Firstly, on track 2, Voices. Not a special idea, but a good flow, bright, joyous. The vocal doesn't quite work with it though, so overall it's alright, fun, but I wouldn't go further than that. And then we have track 5, Back Where I Started, a decent mix of sounds on show, but again, not a particularly special idea, quite ordinary. Must say though, I do really appreciate the different percussive layout for the second drop. I like that slight change a lot. First drop. Second drop. We also have a bassline number, Cold Individual with Shapes, which contains my favourite sequence probably on the whole LP. Each drop is originally just decent bassline, again, ideas not all that special, perhaps even a bit too screechy and overbearing, but the progression to each one is fantastic. All those pinprick synths dancing over the beat, great flow, and difficult not to bop to. Oh, so good. And there we have the focal point of the album discussed, the drops. Beyond that, there isn't too much to comment on because there isn't a lot of scale to AVM Part 2. I will comment though on what I can. Something else I'm not big on here, the big lack of original vocals across the 10 tunes. My favourite vocal being the one from Virus Syndicate, which really brings the opener Smoke and Flames to life. Once again, they provide the source. All the other vocals I've heard before, barring one. That on Give It Up, which, funnily enough, is my favourite of those samples. It's class. The point still stands though, where is the originality on the vocal front? Part 1 had 6 fewer tunes and more actual vocalists on it. Another reason to feel Part 2 is nowhere near as authentic. The mid-sections across the album are pretty non-existent and insignificant for the most part. Not a lot of fleshing out of structure here. They're also brief and kinda sweep under the rug, if you get me. Get them over with quickly. And it just adds to the feeling of insubstantiality and lack of scale. Introductions and outros are pretty straightforward for the most part. I wouldn't say there's anything particularly ambitious on that front. The intro to Smoke and Flames and the album I found to be notably underwhelming. So short, really rushes into it, kicks off on the wrong foot, and no sense at that point that it's an album. There are, however, some pretty good builds here. The gutsy punch on Fuck the Speaker I appreciate before each drop. The alertness of the builds on Alone I think is great, and the ones on Death Anxiety and Cold Individual I find to be very well formulated. Generally though, have to make clear again that structurally this LP is quite unambitious, feels mostly hasty and hurried. And so, all in all, you think Animal, Vegetable, Mineral Part 2 in light of Part 1. This time, an album, a bigger version of that masterful EP. The idea that you have in your head before you hear it for the first time, it isn't that in any way. You know, people will hear what I've said here and say, well, dubstep has changed. That's what it's all about now. Talking about how overly heavy and lacking in invention the LP is. But that doesn't mean surely that every producer has to follow suit. There were producers you hoped wouldn't go down that route, Dr. P being one of them. But oh well. And adding the vocals into that, it just doesn't feel that original. A lot of blatant rehashing. He used to be one of the kings of originality. On that note, people might also say, well, stop talking about it in light of Part 1, but how can I not? It's literally the direct successor to it. Comparisons are unavoidable, and the ideas here just do not stand up to those we've got before from him. Can't say there's anything special here, it's all just passable. Very few of these tunes feeling fleshed out, developed, most feel like rough demos, or stuff that he put together really quickly. An album of filler, no one tune I'm really keen to go back to again and again here. It's just plain, everyday, insubstantial. We do get experimentation, variety, which I think is welcomed, but that's a given on a dubstep album, and I only find a couple of those ideas somewhat engaging. For the most part, Part 2 leaves me thinking once again that loudness will keep reigning supreme in dubstep for the foreseeable future. Another potential saviour gone here, the creativity, invention, flavour, element of surprise vanishing more and more with each day. It's a solid representation of where dubstep has gone, I will give it that. But if you're looking for a true successor to AVM Part 1, then I'm afraid you won't get that here. Now, in terms of my favourite on the album, then I think I would go Give It Up for the vocal and Cold Individual for the drop progressions, and yeah, that's about it. And in terms of recommendations, if you enjoyed the LP, then I would just listen to Part 1 again, then Part 2 again. That's all. But there we have it, my thoughts on the new album from Dr. P, Animal, Vegetable, Mineral Part 2. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you very much for watching. But what did you guys make of AVM Part 2? Do you have a favourite track from the 10? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, then be sure to give it a big old thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. If you haven't already, hit the notification bell along the way so you can be notified whenever I upload a new video to the channel. My social media accounts are linked in the description box down below, and if you want to find some other album reviews on the channel, check the link right here. And lastly, if it's naughty, then you know guys, so be sure, as always, to keep it naughty and stay safe. And I shall see all of you legends in the next one. Dr. P, AVM Part 2, album review. Peace out.